I'm Dr. Gav Schneider. I'd like to spend a bit of time with us talking about the neural seesaw, a term or concept that was originally coined by Dr. Matthew Lieberman and discussed in his excellent book called Social. Part of the challenge that his research identified was that we tend to use the same neural architecture for both emotive and factual type communication and thought processing. This is an interesting finding because if, like me, you've landed up in the corporate or executive world and you've had to have many different conversations, you'll notice that when you're having a factual conversation and then need to switch to an emotional conversation, it feels like there's a bit of a seesaw or a shift. And this is because our neural architecture is transitioning. We can overlay this concept in many different ways. And what's useful to understand is that it's often very difficult for us to hold conflicting or different ideas, even if they're emotive and factual, in our brains and minds simultaneously. Part of the process is if we can get effective at seesawing very quickly, we can get high performance and better outcomes more easily. So part of the challenge with the neural seesaw is just recognizing the fact that this does happen. But equally, we want to apply what we call tactical, which is a combination of strategic and tactical, or tactical and strategic, into the way the neural seesaw works. And it can be quite difficult to hold strategic objectives and outcomes in mind while you're actually doing tactical activities and vice versa. But in a world that is moving so fast, and in a world where communication is incredibly important to high performance, the ability to be able to align intent and actions at the strategic and tactical level is really important. Understanding how the neural seesaw works can help that happen. Equally for us, it can be useful for us to categorize and group pieces of work. So if we need to do creative, emotional-based work, it's not a bad idea to set time aside so you don't have to seesaw back and forward too many times. Equally, if I need to do factual or data-driven work, it might be useful to focus on that. And one of the other pieces that could be quite useful is understanding the seesaw means if I'm getting fatigued with doing one type of work, I can switch to the other, which may enable me to perform quite well. One of the other interesting pieces with how this works is that over time we can get better at the switching process and become more efficient. This is not an easy idea to get right because if we think about this idea of balancing emotive and factual decision making, we can see that as a whole person, I actually need to factor in all these variables, which makes us quite a challenge, but knowing about it can make it more effective.